Beatrice Mary May Hope Breland. I was a Sanderson. I was born in Metaportage in an old log house. I lived with my grandparents a lot, and an aunt raised me and my brother Jim. And we moved a lot. We were kind of fostered out to aunts and uncles for the first 5-6 years of our lives. So it was kind of difficult. Lonely a lot. Yeah. And when I stayed with Uncle Frank, and he had a big family, and the kids were all teasing me because I was shy. We finally settled in Winnipegosis because of school. Went up to grade 5 or 6, and my grandparents sent me away to a convent for a couple of years, but I stayed 3. Got my grade 9 in Winnipeg, and then I came back home, back to Winnipegosis. My grandparents were old then, so I had to look after them. Well, I was supposed to look after them, but I didn't stay long enough at home. Got married and had started raising a family. I had 4 kids with my first husband, lost 3. No, actually, I lost 4. Anyway, I left there in 70 when I was pregnant with my 4th child. Moved back to Metaportage to friends. Stayed with them for a couple of years, and then I met Alan, my husband, and then he moved to, he found a house in Tootsade. It was a small little house. We were living in Metaportage with John Yanty and Mary, and we moved to, he found a bigger house in Tootsade. We moved there, and the kids, by that time I had 6 kids. Yeah. It was very lonely. I couldn't have any friends. Like when I went to school, you didn't dare bring your friends back to a homestead like that. We didn't have any electricity or running water. Grab a pail and run for water. Cook stove was your only source of heat. In the wintertime, a little tin heater, right? When I stayed with Auntie Alice, she picked a lot of berries. I remember picking a lot of berries. I had to do dishes. I was very small. I wasn't even going to school yet, and I was doing dishes. But I had to work. We had to work. They had a farm in Winnipegosis and had cattle to milk, cows to milk, and horses was all they had for work. Doing stooking. We had to do that with Auntie Alice. Oh, that's when they would cut down the oats or wheat or whatever crop they had. Mm-hmm. And they would tie it in bundles, and you'd go pick up those bundles and put them up like a stook, like a little teepee, to dry. All done by hand.
Did you guys know you were Métis? Did you grow up saying you were Métis?
No. I was a half-breed. Knowing that I was a half-breed and what I knew of half-breeds they were looked down on, you didn't think very much of yourself too. I don't remember people ever saying, oh, you're a half-breed or you're, but you still, you don't feel, like now I feel good. I'm a Métis. You would never tell anybody I'm a half-breed. I guess we were in Tootsade when we started learning about Métis, the Métis, having a local and getting your Métis card, and a lot of people that were Métis denied it. It wasn't to your good to admit you were a Métis. Well, look at my first husband there. His dad was a Swede, so he and his mom was an Indian, I guess, a Métis. Their dad was Scottish, and their mother was Cree. Wasn't a half-breed.
Yeah.
And even me, he told me, because my dad was French, a Morrisseau. I'm French. When I was a kid at home, I was not proud to be a Morrisseau because my biological mother and dad were not married. So I was illegitimate. Mm-hmm. So you didn't brag about that either. When we were in Tootsade, we played cards a lot and snowmobiled, fish, hunt. One time I told Alan that he had all the fun because he went out and shot all the birds and I had to clean them. So he told me, he says, well, get your license. And he got me a shotgun and I went out hunting with him. But I didn't enjoy it. It was okay. Ducks were not bad to hunt for, but those geese, they would kill a lot of geese. And you'd have to clean all those geese. And then in the springtime, there was always the suckers were running. And we'd go and kids would have fun. going in the ditches, and they wouldn't quit. You'd get a tub full of suckers, and that's enough. No, they're still going. And they're having fun running through the water, even though it's cold. But we still had to clean all those suckers, and I canned and made salmon, or ground them up and made fish patties.
What would be your favorite thing to eat?
Thinking about Alan and his spaghetti. And I always make those little meatballs with deer meat. Rubaboo. He'd make that too when I was working, eh? And he would have to look after the meals when like in the wintertime, he was laid off, eh? But I remember that, coming home. When I was born, the war was on. Mama had 3 sons. She cried a lot. And then we got those big, tall radios, old wet batteries of old radios. And then she'd listen to CBC or the news. That's all we'd listen to. That's all she'd turn it on. When the war was going, she was Uncle Harvey, Uncle Fred, and Uncle Donald were in the war.
Did they come home?
They all came home, yeah. Mantel, some Uncle Bob, her husband, he was with Jimmy Goose. Remember old James Moore? They were in that prisoner of war camp in Japan. We had rations. The books, we could only get so much stuff and so much sugar, so much of, I don't know what all there was rationed, but I remember those little books we'd have. Go to the store, and if you're out of rations, you don't get no more. Until the next month, I guess, eh? But the only store we had in Metaportage at that time was Joe Janot store, and he was a few miles away to go by. You couldn't walk there. You had to go by horse. That's all there was Joe Janot store. And the church and the graveyard.
How old were you when you went to Winnipeg to the Convent?
I was about 13. It was culture shock.
Yeah.
Well, did you see the house I was in? I went over there. There was electricity. They had the indoor toilets at the time, but the tank was way up there. You'd have to pull a chain to flush the toilet.
But it was better than the 5-gallon pail, right?
It was better than...
Or the toilet, yeah.
Outdoor toilet.
Yeah.
Or chamber pail.
Yeah.
So and then to learn to polish wax floors, polish them. They were all wooden floors, eh? Like you'd have to strip all the wax off and then wax them and polish them with this great big polisher, and dusting and laundry and all that stuff you had to learn like with machines. They had sewing classes. We had to learn to tap dance. We learned ballet. I learned to play the violin, classical music. Had a band, had a little orchestra. When I lived in Winnipeg, when I was married and had my first husband, was very abusive. And I couldn't get any help.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't. You'd call the police and they would do anything. I know when he would do things, beat me up, and they would be called, they would talk to him, and they wouldn't even take him out of the house.
No,
it was his castle.
It was kind of their word against yours.
Yeah.
And their word was always taken at face.
I know the one time I was in the hospital, I was sick, like I had gallbladder trouble. And, Dr. Shea, I don't know if you remember him. He came and told me one evening to go and get your kids because there's a big party going on at your house. Go get your kids and move them from there. So he told me to call the police and they'd come and get me to go. I called the police, they wouldn't come. So I told Dr. Shea. Dr. Shea got mad and he phoned them. They came.
Mm-hmm.
I went to the house and got the kids. Like I had Wanda, Harold, and Loretta. I got them dressed up. It's winter time. They were outside cutting wood and there was a party in the house. A bunch of people were in there drinking, and when the police came there, everybody was gone, but they would just stand between me and him.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't do nothing to him. He was cursing at me and swearing at me when I'm getting the kids ready. And I took them to my Auntie Alice's then went back to the hospital. And that did, but because I was Métis, I don't know, verbally abuses you, watch out.
Yeah. Look out.
Yeah, it's gone too far the other way now. Even kids have turned against their parents. I don't know. I guess the men in those days were didn't think that women had any business to stand up for their rights, defend themselves. Like the house, the home was a man's castle, and they couldn't take him out of there. I had to run away. Yeah, Alan worked. Yeah, he worked in Tootside for a rancher farmer for years until we moved to Dauphin. He got sick, and then we moved to Dauphin. In Tootside, I started working about 1980, but I had several jobs. I did census, and I worked at the garage in Tootside part-time. I worked at Crane River Housing part-time. I'd go in twice a week to go and do their bills and mail. They were shut down already, yeah. And then I worked at the sewing factory there in Crane River. And they made those Eskimo, the longer ones with a shell. We made a bunch of those. And then we made like sports, like for sports, gear for baseball players. You know, the Metaportage team, we made the outfits for them. And well, I got a job here in Dauphin through George again. Like at that time, there was a lot of projects, and then there was a tourism project coming on. I got in with them, did that for a year. Then I got a job with Anishinaabe Housing for a while, and then the Friendship Center. I moved the family here in 78, 79, no, 80, 88, 89, because Alan was sick. I was staying with Mary Auntie at first and I'd just go home on the weekends. But Alan got really sick and ended up in the hospital with 2 surgeries. So I decided to move the kids here.
And Dauphin was a good life, eh?
Well, it wasn't at first, because the kids were, first time in their life, they were in a town.
And how was that?
So I had 3 terrible teens that never came home. Well, Carol did, but Kelly and at the corner where Co-op Gas Bar is, they'd hang out there after school and not come home. You know, the funny thing is, the day I met Alan was in the Rourketon Hotel. And I was with Mary and John Yanti. We went to the hotel, eh? She introduced me to Alan. She knew Alan, eh? Well, not really knew him close, but he took me to meet my father for the first time in my life, my biological father. He was in a little home that was right across from the hotel. There was little rooms there for, they used to call it pics, and the people used to look after old people. And he had a little room there. I went to meet him, and they talked French. They just ignored me.
Did you know that was your dad?
No, but I told Alan his name. He says, I know him. He's my friend. So Alan, I said, well, I would like to meet him. So he took me across over there and went to his little room and met him. He knew of me. He knew of me and Jim, but he never came around. At the end, before he passed away, he used to come out to Metaportage and visit once in a while. And then Alan introduced me to all the other side of, like the Morrislow side of the family, and Auntie Marceline and Uncle Salim and all those people in Crane River that were my relatives from that side. And that's the first time we ever went to, Alan loved to dance. And that's the first time in my life I went to a dance without getting a licking. One time Harvey got together with a couple there, I forget their names, but they had a car, and we went to a barn dance, and there was no drinking in the hall at that time, eh? So the guy stayed outside and drank, and me and that woman went and we were dancing. I got a black eye for dancing. I couldn't have friends. I couldn't even have friends with, like, I joined the Catholic Ladies League there, because when I came back in Winnipeg, I was a full-fledged Catholic. That's where I got to be a Catholic. I was baptized a Catholic, but never was active. We would have those meetings, like, you know, and people, the ladies' houses, and the priest would be there. Well, we were all.
How, like, music and stuff like that and food, like when you guys get together, how often is there flavors of Métis in there? Every time, or? Rare?
Rare now, yeah. Because mostly we get together like at Christmas or Easter or birthday parties. Birthday parties now, the kids want birthday parties either at the swimming pool or at bowling alley. When Loretta and George got married, we were in Tootsade. I made their wedding over there in the outside. You know, and I had neighbors, friends. Everybody made something. You know, somebody would roast a turkey, roast a chicken, or make a salad. Even had a tent. I set up a tent and put streamers around for the wedding party. But I had to sleep in it. They wouldn't sleep in it. Everybody drank all night and there was no dance, no music. So I made pails of slush. Well, that's vodka mixed with juices and that, in the freezer. And then you had Mountain Dew. Balls of Mountain Dew, you'd put a little bit of slush and Mountain Dew on top. Well, those ladies were coming in. I never noticed. I was busy. And I never noticed. They would go in the freezer and they'd fill up their glass and go back outside. They were getting drunk. And then finally I caught them. I said, "You're supposed to put some Mountain Dew in it, you know. You can't drink it straight."
They were having it straight?
They were having it straight. The kids always talk about the times in Tootsay. They remember that and talk about, you know, like they would go and Alan would come home late at night from work. And we lived like, you know, maybe from here to 2 blocks maybe from the corner. The kids would always run out and meet him. The 4 of them, Carol, Chopper, Kelly, and Wanda. They'd jump on the hood of the car and ride back, and I'm, don't. I keep on telling Alan, why do you let them do that? That was their favorite thing to do. They'd go and meet him and jump on the hood of the car, and he would drive into the yard. I went to Winnipeg. I drove myself for the first time since COVID. I went to Winnipeg, and I went and stayed with a niece, Alan's niece, to do some shopping, and she's a knitter. So we went, she gave me a bunch of yarn, I bought some yarn. My granddaughter lives in St. Anne. She came over to my other daughter's place with 2 big boxes of yarn. So I told them, I said, you know, you guys, when I die, you're going to have to put some knitting needles and with yarn in my coffin, because I'm not going to, about 5 big balls of those big balls of yarn. Oh, I haven't even started on them yet. I've been doing the other stuff, mitts and scarves, and I knit a lot of those little lavettes. Help my kids. Like Haley went to Sean is in Snow Lake now with that diamond drilling over there. And Haley went this weekend, so the girls had to look after the girls for part of the day, and then Eddie looked after them and Kelly looked after them for the night. Yeah. I have a good big family. Yes, I went to Niagara Falls with those 2, Eddie and Kelly, my youngest. That was on my bucket list.
Right?
Pretty well, yeah.
Yeah, just like your grandma.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sean and Neil too, a lot. I have 12 grandchildren. This is weird. I had 4 girls and 2 boys. And now I have 6 granddaughters and 6 grandsons. And I have 6 great-granddaughters and 6 great-grandsons. And I had 6 kids. 6, 6, 6, 6. Well, I always tell everybody, like when Sean would bring friends over from school when he was staying with me, yeah, I'd always ask, well, who's your mom and dad? Who's your grandparents? Grandma, don't be so nosy. Well.
So what's the best thing about being a Métis right now then?
Just admitting it and accepting it and being able to and not feeling any shame about being that way. Like my little great-granddaughters next door, they come over here and they look at me, Grandma, you look like Queen Elizabeth.
Oh,
And when I get my hair permed,
Do you have any words of wisdom for the Métis youth today?
Go to school and learn a trade. Don't quit in grade 12 because grade 12 is not a is a thing to nowhere.